All right, good evening, everybody. We are back. It's been a few weeks, but it is the summer. But now football is getting into full session, so we will be back every week. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe. We have a lot to get into. All right, I'm going to shock Nate with a few things tonight, get some hot takes on each team in the NFL as the games start this weekend, and we have a lot going on. But first, Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing good. We actually had our first little taste of action, last week with the Hall of Fame game, which to
Yeah.
me always signifies the beginning of football season. I mean, that just to me, I'm an Ohio guy. I love Canton and everything about high school football up there in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and that weekend it just it smells like football, and the legends come out, and then they play a little scrimmage is what I call it as well. So it's pretty cool because Tom Benson Stadium is the shit, man. They Kent McKinley High School's right there. They play their games there. Lots of other high schools do, some colleges do, and it's a mecca for football.
Yeah, I just like you and I've talked about this many times. I just wish they would make that the All Star or whatever you want to call Pro Bowl game. I just think you're not going to risk your big players at that game with the rules they have for Pro Bowl now. Well, it's becoming even more ridiculous. So my idea doesn't even work anymore. So it is, but the biggest thing is it is celebration of football. And I tell you, what do you think? First of all, before we get into everything else, Eli Manning is going to be on the ballot for next year. What do you think about his chances?
His chances are pretty good, I think. I mean, first off, he played in New York City. Everybody knows who Eli Manning is, so it's not like, who is this guy? Some people don't know him. Sports writers love Eli. Sports writers love the Mannings for whatever reason. I like Eli. I hate Peyton, but I like Eli. Just being honest with you, folks. Never was a big Peyton guy, and thought he was a good quarterback, but a little bit overrated. And Eli may be underrated, to be honest with you. He won football games. He could get it done. Even when people doubted him and he would have a bad season, people are human beings. Sometimes it doesn't always go our way, but he seemed to always be able to bounce back, and he could show up in the big game, and he won 2 Super Bowls. So that a lot of guys, have been in the Hall of Fame that haven't won 2 Super Bowls. And I think that's a big factor. If I had to bet on it, I would probably say 80-20, maybe 70-30 that he's going to go in. If he didn't, I don't think he'll go in on the first ballot, honestly. I don't think he'll go in right away, but I would think in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll see him with a jacket on.
Well, I would think in the best case scenario, since they're all, I think him, Ben, and Rivers should go in together. They came into the
Yeah.
league together. They all three of them had outstanding careers. I think it would be really cool to watch the three of them go into the Hall of Fame together. I just think it would just it would- I guess there's something to be said for each of them getting their day separately, but I just think it would look so cool for the NFL because everybody talks about quarterback classes, and this is probably we've talked about it. I mean, I think when you look at these three at the top, one of the best quarterback classes ever in the history of the NFL and how they worked out. My feeling on Eli, I love Eli. I never met him, but I mean, never seen as a Giant fan a guy more emotionally equipped to play in New York City, where the press never got on him or never got to him. They got
Yeah, I was
on
going
him,
to say they got on him.
but they couldn't get to him.
Yeah.
And if you look at his stats, I understand. Did he have those any epic seasons? No, but he was consistent. He showed up every week and played. I mean, even he led him to the Super Bowl going through that plantar fasciitis one year, and he played in every game. And you knew he would have a couple of games where you'd sit there and go, "What the hell, Eli? What are you doing?" But like you said, in big games, he showed up, and I think he was a calming factor on that team, kept him consistent. And I don't think it was his fault. When everybody talked about the team records, how his team record is only, I guess, maybe 2 or 3 games more wins than losses. Well, Dan Fouts only won 2 more games than he lost. Warren Moon had almost a losing record. They're in the Hall of Fame, so you can't blame everything on the quarterback.
No, they do. I mean, as we know, they get all the blame and all the credit when maybe they don't deserve either. But that's just the way it is. But let's be honest, man. Give me who is the best wide receiver, that Eli ever had?
Probably Amani Toomer, or maybe Hakeem Nicks. Maybe Hakeem Nicks. I think if you go with the three, I would say in this order. I would go Amani Toomer, Hakeem Nicks, and then Victor Cruz.
What about Plax?
Oh, Plaxico Burress. I forgot Plax. But you know what?
Yeah.
He was there for such a short time, only 3 years.
Yeah, and Amani Toomer was pretty old when Eli got there. So Victor Cruz had some good seasons, but it's not like he's a Hall of Famer. Those guys were all, good, but were they good because Eli was good, or did they make Eli good? I mean, I think there was a little bit of both, but I think Eli, more or less was making those guys look good most of the time. And just look what he did at Ole Miss, man. I mean, Ole Miss was a pro. I mean, I know that's college, but I'm just saying, just to start, see the start of his greatness. Ole Miss had just not been good for a long time before he got there, a long time, and really, reached heights that they never had with him. And he continued that. I give him credit too, because he always had. He always had those expectations on his shoulder. He had to live up to his dad. He had to live up to his brother. And, Peyton had some expectations, but, Peyton was kind of like, oh, the first Manning, that's Archie's son. But Archie wasn't like the greatest quarterback of all time. He was a guy that people liked, but he wasn't like, he's not a Hall of Famer. He didn't win championships. But, Peyton didn't have, I think, some of the stress that Eli did.
No, but the one thing about Archie, he never had a team around him. I mean, I think Archie, if he had ended up on the Rams back then, I think he would have had because the Rams had shitty quarterbacks. I mean, they had like when in the 70s, the Rams had they had some of the worst quarterbacks around, or at least they should be. Most of their quarterbacks should have been second or third stringers. And if Archie had gotten out there with his talent, I think it would have been a different story. But we can talk about it at another time. I really want to get into some hot takes here. I'm going to start out in the NFC East. I'm going to read out, or I'm going to give you a team and what I think might be the hot take on this team. You give me your opinion, and then you tell me what the real story right now you think is going to be about this team this year, okay? We're going to start out in Philly. I say, and I'm going to say this right now because I think the loss of Jason Kelce is going to really hurt their offense because his leadership on that line, the tush push and a brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it, I think they're going to struggle mightily to replace him at center, and it's going to affect their whole offense. Give me your opinion on that, and give me your counterpoint of what you think the Eagles' big take is going to be.
Do I think they'll miss him? Yeah, I think they'll miss him. He is a Hall of Fame football player. So anytime you lose a Hall of Famer, anytime you lose a player who's meant that much to your team for that long, it's going to affect you. There's no doubt. And I definitely think it'll affect them the most with that short yardage play that they've been so good at. But, that being said, they've got Cam Jurgens, they've got Matt Hennessy. Neither one of them is Jason Kelce, but I think it's not like they're just going to have somebody running up the middle every time. And not only that, but I like Saquon Barkley on this team, man. That was one of the things that really bothered me over the last 2 years was Miles Sanders, and even last year, with I just was bringing his name up and I lost it. The kid from Georgia joining their team. I just was never. I was like, man, if they had like a running back, this team would be even more amazing. Kenneth Gainwell's okay. Some of the guys they had back in the backfield were decent, but I was just like, man, if they had that badass back, I would love this team. And I think they're gonna be all right with Saquon. And I get it. Last year things kind of went south at the end of the year, but everybody forgets they were also 11-1 to start the season. So I don't think you're going to see that big of a drop as some people are predicting, and I think they will still compete to win the East. I'm not saying they will win it, but they will compete with Dallas to win the NFC East.
All right, hot take number 2. Jaden Daniels is going to vault Washington up into being competitive in the East, and Dan Quinn's defense is going to be better than expected. And Washington might replace either Dallas or the Eagles as a playoff team.
You know, I do think they will be better. I do think they will be better. Last year, they struggled, and everything kind of got blamed a little bit on the quarterback position, like it always does. But do I think that all of it fell on the quarterback? Not really. I mean, this team, for whatever reason, just never gets it done, and they always seem to fall short of expectations for whatever reason it is. And we've seen coach after coach after coach come in and out of here. Now I know the ownership has changed. The management has shuffled, obviously, and I think that will help. That to me is the biggest gray cloud that has left the atmosphere is Dan Snyder being gone. I think that'll really make a difference. I mean, I really do. People hated that guy. People hated, fans hated him, players hated him. I mean, he's just not a likable guy. And I think this new ownership group will pay dividends. And how good is this team? I don't really know, but I like Jaden Daniels more than what they've had recently at quarterback. And then I like the combination of Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. The problem with this team is I don't like anybody behind those two guys. They've got 2 wide receivers on this roster. And if one of those 2 guys goes down, who the hell is going to step up? I mean, De'Ami Brown has basically been a bust so far. I hate to say that, De'Ami, but it's the truth. And they've got Luke McCaffrey penciled in as a starter who's played receiver for like a year and a half. So that bothers me, and I don't like their edge rushers. I get it. They moved on from Chase Young, and they moved on from Sweat, and that's their prerogative. But where the hell are they going to get pass rush from? They've got Dorrance Armstrong and Klein Farrell as their 2 starting pass rushers. Those guys are backups at best, and that concerns me.
All right, the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy won't make it till November.
I do think the sand is about to run out of the hourglass for Mike McCarthy. I mean, it's just the writing's on the wall. If they don't win the Super Bowl, they're gonna move on from a lot of different people. And I'm worried about this team. I really think, when we were talking about Washington, and we were talking about Philadelphia, I really feel like Philadelphia has the best advantage in this division, just because I like they've got the deepest roster. Injuries are going to happen, Joe. I mean, that's one thing I can guarantee you, is that every single one of these teams is going to have big time guys and dudes that they're counting on go down with injury. We've already seen injuries so far. We've seen several key guys. We can talk about it later, but we've already seen several key guys go down. And this Cowboys roster is just it's not deep, and they've lost a lot of guys to free agency. They've traded guys away, and they haven't replaced them, and that to me is a problem. And the offensive line isn't what it once was. So I guess the long-winded answer is I could see that happening. If they are, these people have been pissed. They've been winning 12 games, and people have been pissed off. So, what is it going to look like when they're, 6-5 or 5-7? Going into the stretch. So I could see him gone, and I could see Dak Prescott playing somewhere else next year as well.
New York Giants. We're looking at the last year of Daniel Jones. Even if he stays healthy and has a decent year, he has to have an outstanding year for the Giants to keep him, and the Giants have to make the playoffs. Yeah,
I mean, I think I think Shine and Dayball are even more under the gun than Daniel Jones. But this is similar to Dallas in a lot of ways, just that they're in a win now situation. The good news for New York is I like their receiver group better than, we were just talking about Washington, and I like their receiver group even better than Dallas, to be honest with you. Malik Neighbors is going to be legit. Jalen Hyatt has been playing really well in camp and showed flashes last year. I like Isaiah McKenzie. I like Isaiah Hodgins. I like what I saw out of Wan'Dale Robinson when he got to play. They brought in the veteran Allen Robinson. They've got Darius Slayton. So I like these wide receivers, and I like this offensive line. And then I love the addition of Brian Burns. So I think this team is going to do enough where I don't think they're going to clean house. I mean, the question is, what is it going to take to keep all these guys? What do they have to do to keep their jobs? That's what I don't know. If this team goes 10-7, do they fire all three of those guys? Do they get rid of? Do they release Daniel Jones? Do they fire their head coach? Do they fire their general manager? I don't know. I don't know what the owner's feelings are, and I don't know, what he wants to do and what he feels like they need to do. I know the fans will be pissed with anything but a playoff, berth and maybe a win or two. But I just don't know where the owner's head's at.
We'll go out west now. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to save the Rams season at some point when Stafford gets injured.
I have been a huge Jimmy Garoppolo fan.
Me too.
And I have been, very supportive of him and kind of actually have defended him a lot. The problem with Jimmy Garoppolo is he's suspended for the first, 6 games of the year. That's a big issue. I mean, I just don't expect him to come in and be the white knight when he's not even going to be available until week 7.
But remember a couple of years ago when Baker was chased out of Carolina, and he came in, and in a week, McVay had a game plan. I'm just saying, late in the year, we all know Stafford usually doesn't make it through the year, and I just foresee somewhere around Thanksgiving that Garoppolo is going to have to come in and be what you and I always talk about, a backup quarterback being, to get you those 2 or 3 wins you need.
Somebody's going to end up playing. I mean, we're going to see a backup quarterback at some time. It's just, it concerns me that he's suspended for 6 weeks. And, he's coming off an injury. I think, and he's on a new team, Joe. I mean, that's what concerns me about it. He didn't look good for the Raiders. Do I blame that all on Jimmy? No, I don't. But he got hurt again. Right. Yeah, I mean, the coach was a joke. The team was shitty. So I'm not putting that all on him. But first off, he didn't look good, and secondly, he got hurt again. So I defended him for years and years and years. I still like him. I still think he's played good football and doesn't get the credit he deserves. But do I think that he can last for 6 to 8 weeks? I mean, I have no idea. I wouldn't bet my freaking house on it. Stetson Bennett's back, but that's weird too. He left the team. I don't know if you know about this or have read a lot about it, but he left the team, for over a year and is, just getting back into the fold. So the backup quarterback situation there, although I like those 2 guys behind Stafford, it's kind of a weird dynamic. The good news is the rest of this team is definitely ahead of schedule. I love the running back room, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, and Boston Scott. All 3 of those guys should do well. I like the wide receivers. The O-line is overachieved. The question is, there's no Aaron Donald. And, how the hell do you replace that guy? You don't. But can they get a rotation of guys to get somewhere close? I don't know.
Cardinals. Kyler Murray is going to have a epiphany and be the guy a couple of years ago that helped Arizona get out to that 10-1 start.
It ain't me, man. It ain't me. I am not. I'm just not a believer in this guy. I'm not. I don't, for whatever reason, I loved him in college football, but I just don't love him in the NFL. I mean, people talk about Lamar and him not being a pocket passer and all this shit, and Kyler Murray to me is kind of a run first kind of guy. And last year that injury was kind of a freak injury. Nobody was near him. Remember when he ripped his knee? He was just kind of scrambling. It wasn't like he was running the ball every play or anything. It was just kind of a scramble, and no one touched him. So imagine if someone hits him. What's going to happen to him? I mean, I don't see him lasting the season. I don't think he's done it his entire career, and I certainly wouldn't bet on it this year. And I think this team is a year or two away from competing.
Up in Seattle, they're going to miss Pete Carroll greatly and struggle mightily.
I agree with that. I agree with that take a lot. I think I think they started to take Pete for granted. In my opinion, I mean, Pete Carroll to me is an excellent football coach. Look what he did at USC. Look at his reputation in the NFL. You kick that guy's ass out of town, and you may feel good about yourself and whoever the hell you hire. But I think you're going to miss this guy. I mean, he's an innovator on defense, and to be honest with you, I just don't know what this new guy is going to bring to the table. He's never been a head coach in his life, and it's a lot easier said than done. So I think I could easily see this team struggled last year, and they had Pete Carroll. So what's it going to look like this year without him? I don't know. And Geno had that one really good season, and that's about it. I mean, I'm sorry, I like Geno, but that 1 year was kind of an off, a one-off. Instead of what he really is about, I think. And this is a team too that I don't really feel is deep or as deep as they need to be to compete. I mean, they're just not close to the 49ers, in my opinion.
Let's go to the 49ers. Brock Purdy is finally going to shut everybody up and have an MVP type season.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that doesn't believe in Brock Purdy at this point, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he's only played in pro football for a year and a half, but what a year and a half. I mean, this guy was supposed to be the practice squad quarterback. He ended up having to go in and start, and he won every single game he started, Joe, until he ripped all the ligaments off his elbow. And then everybody's like, oh, no one's ever come back from this. He's not going to come back. Well, then he comes back and takes him to the Super Bowl. The jury's back for me. The jury has already given the card to the bailiff, and the judge has read it out. This guy is legitimate, and you can pick apart whatever you want. You can call it a system, quarterback. You can say whatever you want, but you're wrong. You haven't watched the tape. You don't know shit about football if you think this guy's not good.
All right, we'll go down to the South now. And the Saints. Allen will be fired by November.
I surely hope so. For their sake. I mean, nothing against the guy. I think he's a really good defensive coordinator. He is just not a good head coach.
He's Wade Phillips.
He really is. I love Wade Phillips, but he wasn't a good head coach either. And I actually think Wade Phillips is better than Dennis Allen. This team I like. The defense is still good, although they're aged. Demario Davis is 92 years old, and Cam Jordan is, I think, older than him. So that concerns me. And this offense is, Derek Carr is Derek Carr. I mean, he just kind of is what he is. You know what I mean? So and
that's nothing wrong. There are quarterbacks that are that. They're not going to win you games. They're like what they always say, game managers. If the game is there for him to manage, great. If he has to do something more, no. And you pair Derek Carr with Dennis Allen, that to me is a recipe for disaster. And honestly, I like Tampa better than I like this team, and I think Atlanta has taken a step forward. So I would put Tampa and Atlanta ahead of the
other two teams in this division. I put the Saints and the Panthers kind of together.
All right, we're going to go to Carolina. Bryce Young is going to struggle again.
Agreed. I think he is going to struggle. And, my favorite thing is everybody's like, oh, he didn't have a lot around him last year. And, CJ Stroud had all these. CJ Stroud, no one even knew any of those wide receivers' names until CJ Stroud got there. And I'm sorry, man, CJ's just legit. And I looked at these two guys in college, and Bryce Young is a good college quarterback. But when I looked at whose game was going to translate, I was thinking CJ all the way. And, what Bryce can be, I'm not really sure. Do I think he might be better than he was last year? Yeah, I could see that. I mean, Deontay Johnson should help a little bit. I just don't know what this team's identity is. And, I don't know what, I've never seen this head coach coach a game before. So this team is probably the biggest mystery to me. But I still don't like their offensive line a whole lot. I know they spent some money, but I just don't know if they, really improved it. And, I'm not 100% in love with their defense. So I think the answer is yes, he's still going to struggle.
All right. Over in Atlanta, it's the time for Pitts to show the promise he had in college.
Yeah, I think so. I think.
And Kirk Cousins, he finally has a quarterback that can get that out of him.
Yeah, I mean, there's no more excuses. But, you say it's excuses, but he's got a little bit of a point, man. I mean, Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota, they have not been living in quarterback heaven over there. You know what I'm saying? And so Kurt is a big step up. But he's, let's be honest, Kyle Pitts was 71st in the NFL in receptions. And this was kind of the issue with him coming out. Is this guy a wide receiver? Is he a tight end? Is he a hybrid? Well, to me, he's a tight end who can't block. And he's not, as good as, he's just not like a pass catching guy like Travis Kelce. 3 touchdowns. I mean, come on, man. That's just not going to get it done. So I think this is a big year for him, and I could see him finding a new home if his numbers don't drastically swing around.
All right, and down in Tampa, our boy Baker is going to get them to the division title again. You said you thought it's going to come down to Atlanta and Tampa already. I think Baker has that swagger that Cousins doesn't, and I think Baker's going to win his second division title down there.
I like this team the best. I like this quarterback the best. So I agree with you. If you have to pick one, first off, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are probably the best pair of wide receivers on any team in the league. At least if you're talking about with longevity. Both these guys have produced for a long time, and I think get overlooked. I think some people don't talk about how good Mike Evans is. You talk about who the best wide receiver is in the NFL, and people will throw Justin Jefferson at you. They'll throw Jamar Chase at you. You'll probably hear Cooper Kupp, maybe 3 or 4 other names before you mention Mike Evans. But if you look over, the last 7-8 years, who is the most consistently good wide receiver? It's got to be Mike Evans. And I think this team will win the division once again, at least based on what's on paper.
All right, we'll go up to the north. Minnesota. Justin Jefferson will be crying to be out of Minnesota by October.
Yeah, I don't like anything this team has done in a long time. Do I think he'd be crying to get out of there? No, he's gotten paid, man. I think he's pretty happy right now. He's getting $30+ million a year to play football. But I do think he's going to be. He might be a problem for them. If he starts running his mouth and is upset and unhappy, it could be a big problem because he's there. I mean, he's not going anywhere.
All right. Neither you and I
And
are.
I don't like this quarterback room at all. I don't like Sam Darnold. I don't like JJ McCarthy either.
Nope. All right. Neither of you or I were big fans of Caleb Williams, but he is going to do better in Chicago because he's surrounded by talent.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if Justin Fields had this roster, I think we'd be talking about him, as an emerging quarterback. They finally gotten some pieces in there, and I'm not just talking about on offense, on defense, on offense, all over the place. So, I think he's going to be, the greatest quarterback ever in his rookie season? No, but I do think this team is much improved all the way around.
Okay. Let's go up to Detroit because the pressure is squarely on them to repeat what they did last year, and they're going to have problems keeping themselves in front of the pack. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think already Green Bay was nipping at their heels, and I think Chicago is going to be better and harder to beat. Minnesota, as we just talked about, I'm not impressed with. But this team's going to have a target on their back. They won a lot of games last year, and it just they got a lot of bounces, a lot of things worked out for them. And although I like this roster and I like this team, you just can't expect every season to be like that. And I think it's going to be difficult for them to win the same amount of games and get as far as they did last year.
All right. Up in Green Bay, there's a danger in paying Jordan Love off one season. He's been around. He was due for the money. That's just how he got to sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a bunch of years. It was time for him to get paid, but he's gonna struggle a little bit, and people are gonna say they paid too much off of 2/3 of a season.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. He really only, honestly, they paid him based off half a season. Because it was the last 10 games was the reason they gave him the money. I mean, he really stepped up. Now, granted, he looked really good, but he looked really good for about 10 or 11 games. So, he's got a lot to live up to, and we'll see what happens. My biggest fear for Green Bay is if something happens to Jordan Love. They have nothing behind him. Sean Clifford, I don't think has ever taken a snap in the NFL. Michael Pratt is a rookie who wasn't even drafted. He's never taken a snap in the NFL. If Jordan Love goes down or something happens to him, they're in deep shit trouble up there.
All right, let's go over to the AFC East. The Bills are going to be the champs, even though with all their losses.
I don't think so. I think this is the year that there's a changing in the guard. I think Miami is legit. I think New York is better. I mean, shit, New York won 7 games last year, Joe, with Zach Wilson. How many games are they going to win with a 4-time MVP? I think it's going to be more than 7. I really do, especially if they can get their pass rusher to come on down and put some pads on. So that to me is that's a big storyline. It really is, because they need him. They let Huff walk, and they're really expecting Hassan Reddick to come in and be a big piece of what they're doing. So that being said, we're talking about the Bills here, and I think the Bills are going to struggle a little bit. They're not going to be. This is just not as good a team, in my opinion, as it has been. And they're like, oh, well, Josh Allen will make these guys better. Well, Josh Allen made all those other guys better, and they were damn good. So I don't know. You're asking a lot of this guy. You've been asking a lot of him, and now you're really asking a lot. So I think that's true.
All right, up in New England, Drake May is going to be termed a bust by the end of the year, even though it's unfair, and he might recover, but he doesn't have enough around him this year. And with a new coach in Mayo, Drake May is in like the worst position he could be in to be a high-rated quarterback coming into this league.
I just don't think he's that good. I think he was overdrafted. I think he was overrated. And all accounts that I've heard from players, from coaches, from scouts, from media, pretty much every observer to their practice, Joe Milton is beating him out. And do I think they'll start Joe Milton over him?
No.
That's hard to believe when you draft somebody number 3. But I could easily see Jacoby Brissett starting the season, and I could see, him struggling, and then Drake May getting put in, and him struggling, and I could see them, turning to Joe. Based on what I've seen, man, Joe is looking pretty damn good. And to be honest with you, as I've mentioned to you on the show, I didn't see much of a difference between those two guys. And one of them got drafted really late, and the other one got drafted 3 overall. So that's not good.
Well, we've seen third round quarterbacks outshine Brock Purdy outshine a number 1 guy. Since you started with Miami and the Jets, we're going to put them both together here. When you look around at both their rosters, give me the key player from each roster that will put outside of the quarterback. Just take the quarterback away, because that's easy. When you're looking at the Miami roster and you're looking at the Breece Hall or the Jet roster, who's the most important player outside of the quarterbacks to get them to the East Crown?
I think on Miami it's 1A and 1B. It's Jalen Phillips and it's Bradley Chubb. Are those guys healthy? Are those guys going to be healthy right away? If they are, and they can play this season and make it through 17, or at least come in relatively early and get a pass rush going, I think those guys are the 2 most important pieces. The offense is going to score. The offense is going to move the ball. They're going to score touchdowns. But can they stop anybody? Can they get to the quarterback? Last year, they were bringing dudes off the street, and I mean literally bringing guys off the street towards the end of the season. And so they need Jalen Phillips and they need Bradley Chubb. Those 2 guys together, I combine them as one because they need both those guys to be pass rushers. So I think that's the most important piece there. And in New York, it's kind of a tough question because this defense has been good. They were good last year, and they got it done. I guess my biggest concern is the second wide receiver position. So I'm going to put it on Mike Williams. Is he going to play? When is he going to play? And is he going to produce? Because they need somebody else besides Garrett Wilson to catch balls from Aaron Rodgers. So I'd say Mike Williams.
Okay. Let's swing down to the South. Let's start in Indianapolis. Richardson's not going to be as good as everybody expects.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, he did play a little bit better than I expected him to in the beginning, but let's be honest, man, he played 3 games. So, I don't know. This is probably the second most unknown team to me as far as, the ones we've discussed so far. I don't know what to expect from these guys. I'm not in love with their roster, to be honest with you, from top to bottom. So and we got a 2nd-year head coach and Richardson's, there's a lot of pressure on him, to come out and be the guy. So the good news is they do have Joe Flacco. And that's a better situation than they were in last year. Or, is it? I don't know. Gardner Minshew played pretty good. So we'll see. But, yeah, I think he may struggle.
All right. Let's see. The Titans are going to be a mess. Do you think Callahan makes it more than 1 year in Tennessee?
I do. Just because they just got rid of Vrabel. You can't dump Mike Vrabel and bring somebody in and fire them after a year. I mean, you just can't do that. So I think he'll last more than a year, but I think I do think that the Titans are going to be a mess.
Short shelf life for Callahan, though.
Yeah, 2 years maybe. 2 years. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think they're going to fire him after 1 season. They know that they're not. No one thinks I really, no one thinks that they're going to, win 10 games. I mean, or 10 or 11 games, but that's the only reason I think he'll make it to year 2.
All right, over in Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence recovers his mojo and plays better and has them as a playoff team.
I think they're going to compete for the playoffs for sure. I think he's going to play better, and I think they'll have a better season this year than last year. Last year they were destroyed with injuries and just things went bad. But I think they'll be a better team this year, and I think they'll compete for that division crown.
Down in Houston, we're going to find out that we finally found the rival for Patrick Mahomes and C.J. Stroud, and they're going to go to the Super Bowl.
I don't know about the Super Bowl. That would be really cool, and I'd be all for it. But that's big time. They were real close. They got to Baltimore. I'm just not ready to throw this team in the Super Bowl, but stranger things have happened. I mean, I know people gave DeMeco Ryans a lot of credit, but I don't even think he got the credit he deserved. I mean, this team was just as bad and the franchise was as low as you could possibly get. And he walked in and just erased all of that almost immediately. So I could see this team making the playoffs again. I could see this team, doing really well and maybe even improving on last year.
All right, let's look at the AFC West, which is this. I'll tell you, these are the last. I think these are the 2 best divisions in football right now. Well, the West is a little just because they have the Chiefs, but they have a lot of you have the Chargers who should be okay, but Herbert already is limping around with plantar fasciitis.
Yeah,
and let's face facts, that's the kind of situation that can linger. That could be something. It could be a 2-week, it could be a 4-week, it could be a 16-week problem, which doesn't speak volumes for Harbaugh's first year there. So I worry about him being injured. The Raiders, can Gardner Minshew? I mean, he showed us something last year, but I mean, now he is the guy right now. It's not like it's unexpected. I mean, he has to do something. And Devontae Adams is already, there's crickets behind him saying he wants to get out of town. And if he goes, what do they have left? And then you got Denver, who apparently Bo Nix is not exactly making Sean Payton feel real good right now, and he's going to start Jared Stidham. Talk to me about the AFC West as one big item.
Yeah, well, I think Bo Nix will be the starter. Do I think he'll start the first game? I don't know, but he's trying to bring him along slowly, and I think that's smart. He's got every rookie on his roster listed as the second or third string, so he's making them earn it. I don't see any problem with that. I kind of think that's how it's supposed to be, isn't it, Joe? Isn't that how you make your money? You earn your money, and you've earned where you're at in life. And that's
you sound like my boss now.
I'm just saying that's how it used to work, man. You used to have to earn your stuff, and instead of just being handed to you. So I think that Bo Nix will be fine. They picked him for a reason. He will be the starting quarterback, in my opinion, by week 4 at the latest. And how good that team will be, I don't know. I don't really love their roster, but I do think he'll be the quarterback by week 4 at the latest. Chargers, to me, and the Raiders both, first off, the biggest problem for them is they play in this division. We call this division one of the best. Is it? I mean, I don't know if it is. Denver to me doesn't really scare me. The Chargers, I don't know how good they'll be. They should be better with Jim Harbaugh, I think, but I don't really love their roster, and they kind of got rid of everybody who was productive on their offense. So that bothers me. And then the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, are those guys even different? I don't know. I think Minshew's probably better, but I've heard a lot of the guys on the team like Aiden O'Connell better. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of trouble on all three of those teams, and I expect the Chiefs to win this division again for sure.
Doesn't it remind you? It's almost like um, what the Patriots did to the AFC East from 2000 to 2019. The Chiefs have now done to the AFC West.
I
No
was
matter
about to
what,
say that. I was about to say
you
that
know,
there's a different coach every year. All these other teams have different quarterbacks every year. It seems like, and nobody can keep their job because nobody can beat Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And I think it's very similar to what we saw in the AFC East for a lengthy period there.
it's kind of like Harbaugh has taken over the Rex Ryan New York Jets persona. Everybody thinks because he's come into town that the gap is going to go to this, and it's still. I mean, my favorite one of my favorite shows, The Wire. If you come for the king, you best not miss. You know what I mean? It's like you got one shot at the king. You best not miss it. So I'm going to tell you the other one is this. Is we always talk about this division. It's one of the best in football. I mean, they don't always have the best team, but it is one of the most competitive. The teams seem to always battle well with it. It's must see TV whenever they're playing each other. Old style, tough football. It's outside. It's in the weather. It's in the elements. They hate each other with a passion. The fans hate each other. So let's take a look at the AFC North. Um, I mean, let's just look at the quarterbacks right now. What we're looking at. Which quarterback situation do you think is worse right now? Pittsburgh or Cleveland?
Which what now?
Which quarterback situation it looks worse right now? Pittsburgh or Cleveland? Because I mean, Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow. Lamar is Lamar. They're in the top five quarterbacks, whichever way you want to put right now in the NFL. The two of them are when healthy. So
Yeah, I mean it's tough. That's tough. I mean, I actually like the situation that the Steelers are in right now. I mean, I don't love Russell Wilson, but I think he's better than Kenny Pickett. I think that is a fact. I don't think that's me just blowing smoke. I mean, Russell Wilson's better than Kenny Pickett. Okay, and this team is pretty solid around him. And I've heard really good things about Justin Fields thus far. At the very beginning, some people were, you know, there were some rumblings that he was struggling to learn the. Well, he's brand new, man. This is a brand new offense. So yeah, the first week, man, not looked good, but since then, he's looked really well. He's played really well and looked really good and picked up everything. And he's starting right now because Russ is hurt. So I like those two guys, and I think that Pittsburgh definitely upgraded their room. Cleveland, I'm just being honest with you here. I haven't seen a whole lot of Deshaun Watson. That guy that played for Houston and went 4-12, but everybody was talking about how great he was. A, that team was 4-12, and B, he hasn't looked like that since. And he can't stay healthy all of a sudden, and he just doesn't have that same whatever it was that he had before. So I guess I'm going Pittsburgh on this one as it stands right now.
As we come to do it, we wrap up this section. It's funny when you brought up about people coming from the whether it be a sports writer or a fan on a call-in show or whatever. They go to these preseason training camps and they don't know what they're looking at because this is where they want to get the rust off. This is what if a guy misses a wide receiver by 10 yards in August, the coach, yeah, he's a little PO'd, but it's okay. Just don't do that in September. This is what they're trying to do is to get the rust off, get up to speed, get everything else. And that's why every time I hear these reports from training camp, I sit there and go, who cares? Let's see what happened. What's he going to be like at the first week of September? Then and in the first game, because that's when he gets serious. And I just love these reports. I don't know how you feel about them, but I just take them with a grain of salt. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I mean, it's we're just speculating right now, okay? And every season is just a different animal, and we're not, what appears on paper is not always what shows up on the field. And the biggest thing that we just can't predict is injuries. People are going to go down, and we're not sure who it is, and each injury affects each team differently. And we're going to have to, you got to sort this out on the football field. But I'm interested to take a look at the preseason to see, what these teams look like, and also, what kind of depth they have.
Before we go, I saw some flashes. It was while I was working today, so I didn't get to see it. What Harbaugh in Michigan? What exactly happened with his recruiting up there, and what's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, people are pretty uninformed as far as what's actually happening. I think some people are confused because there's so many damn violations from this institution that you don't even really know what's happening, because he was suspended last year for 6 games, 3 games to begin the season. Related to what we're talking about now, it was basically impermissible contact with recruits during the pandemic. They told him that there was restrictions going on across our country, in case you missed it, and you can't talk. You couldn't go and visit people. You couldn't have people on campus, and he completely ignored the NCAA's rules, which he's done pretty much consistently since 2019 and 2020, and he's banned from college athletics until 2028. I mean, that's just a fact. Let's say things don't go well in in San Diego or LA or wherever the hell the Chargers are now. He cannot come back for over 4 years, and maybe he doesn't care. But I got to tell you, the NFL isn't going to let him just be a shelter for people. And there's talk that he may have to serve suspension in the NFL. I kind of don't see that happening, but
I don't think you can do it. I don't think that would go to the courts. You know this better than me because you're in the courts. That would go to the court system because one has nothing to do with the other. But I do say
I understand that, but there's guys that have gotten suspended for doing things unrelated to football. I mean, conduct detrimental to the team is a very broad scope, Joe, and the NFL uses it broadly. And let's be honest, Michigan is already on 3 years of probation and have been fined. Recruiting limits have been negotiated down, and they're in big time trouble because there's more hits coming for this. And I think you've got to hammer this situation down, because if you don't, what are you saying? Anybody just do whatever the hell they want?
Well, I agree with you there, and that's what I was about to say. I think it's a toothless penalty they gave him. He's going to get 3 years in San Diego anyways. He's going to be there 3 years. I mean, unless he's caught with doing something really weird, like the old saying they used to say about politicians: the worst thing you'd be found in bed with is what, a dead girl or a live boy. I mean, it's like they're not going to do anything to him, and it's not a real penalty. But then again, this is where they got to start looking. The NCAA's got to get some teeth. First of all, is the AD still there?
Yep.
What did he know? He should be under investigation right now. What did he know? When did he know it? Why didn't he do something about it? He should
be fired already. I mean, There's obviously a lack of institutional control over there.
Exactly.
Because there's been rule upon rule upon rule broken. There's been punishments. There's been investigations. It's just there's no oversight to what's going on. And how that guy still has his job is it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
It's a joke
that guy has his job, and the fact that the president of the university is still supporting him and having his back, I can't even explain it.
Right. It's like it not as bad a thing as happened, but it's kind of what happened around Penn State and Joe Paterno. The AD, the president of the university, they all knew all the shit that was going on around the Penn State, and they took a fall too. But Paterno took the biggest fall because he was the face of the university. Harbaugh's out of town. Harbaugh's gone. I mean, he's ghost. He's gone. He doesn't care. Even if he fails in the Chargers, first of all, he's probably got enough money in the bank where he never has to work another day in his freaking life. And number two is he can get a job as an offensive coordinator with some team. Somebody will pick him up and give him an offensive coordinator job in the NFL.
Maybe not, Joe. I mean, winning cures all, and if he wins, yeah, he'll probably do whatever he wants and continue doing whatever he wants. But if they don't win and things don't go well, he could be, then the problems start. So he better keep winning. He better win nearly every damn game. Because if he doesn't, there's going to be a big problem. I don't know. People are kind of forgetting this, but they ran his freaking ass out of San Francisco. They didn't want him. He took him to the Super Bowl, and they didn't want him around because he's an asshole, and nobody could get along with him. Nobody wanted to work for him, and nobody wanted him around. And they basically told him to get the hell out. And everybody forgets that. They're like, oh, he left to go to Michigan. Well, they were kind of telling him to go, because they weren't renewing his contract, and they weren't going to rehire him or re-sign him or give him a new deal. So, the Michigan job opening up was a really good thing for him because he wasn't going to be employed by San Francisco anymore.
How two brothers can be so totally different, him and John. Like, John seems to be such a good guy, a good coach, does everything the right way, and Jim is just whatever way he can do to cheat, he'll do it. And it's served him well so far in his coaching career, but we'll see how it works this year. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as easy as he might think it would be, especially if Herbert's injury lingers. So we got the first weekend of the. What is there any particular team you're going to be focusing in on this weekend, or just a little bit of everything?
I think just a little bit of everything, man. We're going to get into what's happening and what to expect from this year, and really try and dig into the 12-team playoff, because I think a lot of people don't understand how that works. So we're gonna talk about that. But before we get there, I mean, what about Team USA with a big win today? Really finally tested big time by a good Serbian team, and they were down 17 points. And I know that I'm a big time LeBron James homer, but 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists from a guy who's 40-something years old. I mean, this guy is the best player in the world, and he's 40 years old, Joe. I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. I mean, it's crazy to watch him do what he's doing night in and night out. Now, Steph Curry played well today. He had 36 points and had like 21 in the first quarter. He was legit and was filling it up, but LeBron James has been the stir, the straw that's stirring the drink for the USA team.
It's a tough. You root for USA to win and everything. I think in some ways when these guys are on this team, and I talked about this at length. I didn't want to see LeBron and Kevin on the team. I wanted to see some younger players start to transition on, but I can't argue what either one have done. And I'm not going to argue about them being on the team, and especially look stupid now. But the thing about this, I remember the 1992 team, and sometimes that team overpassed. It seemed to just, it was just like, I don't want him to score more than this guy. It was a good. It really was. It does bring out the team aspect in most of these guys, where they give up their shot for a better shot for their teammate and stuff, which is fun to watch. It's the closest thing that you see in the regular basketball of these guys.
It's amazing. And, Joel Embiid is a guy who scores, 30, 40 points a night, 50 points a lot of the time. And, he's been kind of pass first and has been a real team player. And I think that says a lot about, what he wants to do. And then LeBron too, he had 16 points tonight. He shot the ball 9 times. He was 6 for 9 from the floor, and his main focus with 10 assists was getting everybody else involved. And the fact that the guy's even there, I mean, he's 40 years old. He's got $1 billion. He's trying to win another title. He wants to play with his son. And what's he doing? He's over there trying to win a gold medal for the country. And the LeBron haters still find ways to try and rub him raw, but I don't get it. I don't know I just don't understand how you don't like this guy. At least don't like his basketball game.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do. A lot of it is now is everybody is so politically skewed on both sides of the aisle, and as a lot of these celebrities get skewered for why is he saying that? Well, he has the right to his opinion too, and I don't care if you agree with it or don't agree with it. It's his opinion. It's everything today is just ridiculous with that kind of stuff. Above the Olympics, though, you had to laugh when the pole vaulter couldn't get his junk over the bar. I could just see him getting like some kind of an advertisement for Trojan condoms
or Magnum.
Yeah.
You can see that too.
That would be perfect. Okay. All right, my friend. Have a great night. Good to be back with you. We'll be back next Thursday. The Giants should be on now. And have a great weekend.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you real soon.
Talk to you later.